Today, energy and the economy absolutely in the headlines. Power companies warning prices going up, as you heard, 35% at least next year. Hardly surprised, isn't it, when we're so intent on closing down what works? We won't even have that nuclear debate. Joining me now, Sky News Political Editor Andrew Clennell. This promise, Andrew, let's go back to the election. This promise of $275 off your power bill over the term of the government, I might add, that wasn't per annum, that was a 3-year commitment. What's the political consequences now when our power prices are going up next year by 35%?
I don't think there's political consequences if they don't meet this now, Peter. But I'll tell you where there is political consequences. Why? When they go up 35%. I think that's a government killer. So I think they can get away with the 275. That's around 10%. In 3 years' time, they'll get hit with it, but it's not election losing. But I think, 35%, and from what experts are telling me more, is enough to kill you off. So they're going to have to do something. Now, they've already reached this agreement. There's two things that I'm told they're looking at, or certainly one is trying to put some sort of cap on gas prices here. I don't know how they do that, but we've had Madeleine King tell me on Sunday and Jim Chalmers say again today there's more they can do with the gas companies. The other thing, the really difficult thing for Labor, is they are going to have to look, I think, at some sort of government subsidy to keep some of these coal-fired power stations open. And that's going to be in the order of hundreds of millions. I don't really see any other option in order to keep prices down.
Well, just on that point of a government subsidy, we know the Andrews government is paying a subsidy to keep coal-fired power running in Victoria. We don't know how much it is, we don't know how long it's going for, but it'd be certainly in the millions and millions of dollars. I mean, that would be tough with the Greens and the Teals in Canberra, surely. Very
tough. But at the end of the day, the voters who voted having one of their main issues is climate change, when one of their main issues is power bills, that is going to completely flip. And we've seen this happen before. So just political considerations. And the Alinta chiefs really sounded the bell here ahead of time and just said, well, you guys got to do something because this is the train that's coming for you.
Yeah, look, I have to say, unlike a lot of people, I saw a lot of political polling, real polling for 16 odd years, and people were supportive of climate issues, sure, but this is where the rubber hits the road on these issues. And when you get a collision between cost of living and climate's fantastic when it doesn't cost you anything. But when it starts hitting you in the bill in the mailbox or now on email, that's when it's real. And I think that's the difficulty. And when a pub has to cop 35% on their power bill, Andrew, they can't put the cost of a pot or a midi up by 35%, or the parma in the pub can't cost 35% more. So when people start to feel it in the small businesses, in their shopping strips or in their household bills, that's when it's really going to bite politically.
We know for many years power prices was the number one issue in Australia, and a lot of that was caused by the previous Labor government's renewable energy target and a feeling that there'd been a move to transition too quickly. The other part was gold plating. So it just looks like a return to those days. Now, sure, some of it is Ukraine fuelled. The government will try and say it's the last government not giving policy certainty, but it's hard to escape the fact that after state governments, including state Labor governments, privatised the generators, and there was a belief by private companies, there was this move to this transition that kept getting pushed. They just weren't prepared to invest anymore in coal-fired power generators, even less so when they've got this climate change target coming from Canberra. And that's why we find ourselves in the predicament we're in. And it's a very big political predicament for the Albanese government.
I'm just going to talk to an expert in a tick about Ukraine and developments overnight, the missile strikes coming across close to Kyiv from Russia. What are we hearing from the government? Talk today, they're going to send these bushmasters. I spoke about that last night. They're better off over there than sitting in garages here. But what else is on the table?
Well, you'd think a lot of that would be held back for the budget, so they have a positive announcement when there's a lot of negative in there in terms of budget cuts and the like. Richard Marles, yes, he did surprise today a bit when he talked about sending troops to do troop training. Now, you wouldn't expect that in Ukraine, but we know that's occurred in the UK. So perhaps it could occur there. Richard Marles has recently been over there. In Poland too, other allies of Britain and Australia have been looking to base some training camps. So I think that's what we're potentially looking at, and that is a big move by the Australian government.
All right, and just quickly, Jim Chalmers, pretty grim economic warnings as he headed off for Washington. Is he trying to condition us ahead of the budget in a fortnight?
Well, either that or he's one of the biggest pessimists I've ever seen in politics, Peter. I mean, the guy got the job, and he basically, from what I've been able to glean since, just got the PFO numbers, the numbers that were publicly available, no real update in terms of taking office, and immediately got up in a press conference, said the situation was dire, and he hasn't stopped that rhetoric since. Now, Peter Dutton, I saw you use that grab before. He's saying, well, he's talking down consumer confidence, he's talking down the economy. There's no doubt he is doing that. Maybe apart from anything else, he wants to curb household spending to get a curb on inflation. But otherwise, it's not that logical, except, as you say, it is about when the budget cuts come, if any tax measures come, we'll be waiting for that, but we know they're not changing stage 3. He needs to be able to say this is the reason. And so at one point, Anthony Albanese was billing it as a mini budget. Doesn't really sound like it at the moment, does it? I think there'll be cuts of programs and potentially efficiency dividends in there. And he's even talking to his Labor base too in that respect, I think, Peter, in excusing the budget he's about to deliver. Look, of course, it's a grim situation globally, but Australia has proved pretty resilient, the economy, and even he had to admit today that Australia may not have a recession out of this. In fact, probably won't.
Yeah, well, never underestimate how quickly a government can stuff things up. We remember what Kevin Rudd inherited, no net debt, money in the bank from John Howard, and look where he ended up a couple of years later. Andrew Clennell, thank you as always.